slightly mad. I'm going slightly mad.
Hello, Aloysius. Hello, everybody. How are you today? Hello. Why are we back here? We're back here to talk about writing. What did you think? Have you done more? I've done more. I've done more than I actually thought I would, which is really cool. What have you done? I have done stuff. We'll get to that. But before we start, remember, if you want to support us and you like our videos and want to support them, then come across to our shop. We have a new book out this month. Really exciting new book. Mystery. First chapter's on here, if you want to go check that out. But we have all our books. We have writing services. And if you want to go and have a look at our Redbubble shop that has lots of designs, some of them really good for spooky season, also some Christmas designs, since we're getting closer to that. If you want to check those out, they are also on our website, on our Redbubble website. You just go to our website and there's a tag to Redbubble. There's over 100 different designs on there. So if you want to support us, that is how you support us, because we don't do Patreon, we don't do ads. Yes, if we don't want to spend any money, because yes, we understand that people don't always want to spend money, like, subscribe, comment and share. Those really help us as well. So that is how you support us, as usual. Now let's get on with what we're doing. Right, so what are you doing? Well, last time I was here, do you remember when we were talking about creating characters? Yes, when we were talking about creating characters, I said that I wanted to look into a particular style of writing that I wasn't sure whether or not would work. Yes. What style of writing was that? Well, the style of writing I wanted to look into is called ficto-criticism. Sounds weird. Is weird. Yes. Ficto-criticism is a writing style that has more or less never really left the academic world. I had a look into it. I first encountered ficto-criticism when I was doing my master's degree. And it was while doing that degree that I saw this thing and I thought, that looks interesting. That looks something I would like to investigate further as a way of writing. So in a nutshell, what ficto-criticism does is it originated in anthropological writing. So it actually doesn't come from creative writing. It comes from social studies writing. This sounds really in-depth. Yeah, this is in-depth. This is. It comes from from anthropology, and it involves the writing up of a purely technical text, but also putting the self in. So involving creative elements within a purely technical text. Sounds weird. It is weird. It is weird. And so I thought this is interesting. And for the idea that I have, I thought, I wonder if this particular style would work. Now, there are lots of books, well, not actually lots of books, but found document type books are first person narrative, that sort of thing, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like Chinese box books, like Wuthering Heights, or like Frankenstein. These have quite an old history. So that isn't what I was looking at. I was like, no, actually, I don't want to write something that's purporting to be true, but still follows essentially the same sort of qualities as a narrative fiction, which most of the sort of what you would call mockumentary, and they're not even really mockumentary, they're more Chinese box first person narratives told to types of things. Think, for instance, Faux, where you're questioning the concept of authenticity. That's the purpose of those books, not to satirize something. And because I want to parody and satirize, and because you're thinking of Scribbans, aren't you? Yeah, I'm thinking of Scribbans. I'm thinking very much of Scribbans. But because I am wanting to play with form, I thought, oh, well, maybe ficto-criticism would actually work as a play with form. Now, part of the problem of ficto-criticism is it's incredibly difficult to do. You don't say. Because it's incredibly difficult to do, it's incredibly rare. In fact, I believe now at this vantage point, it is seen as a bit of a writing cul-de-sac. That it was conceived of, it was played with, but ultimately it just did not, it did not have enough oomph to actually make it a genuinely usable form. But I did find one. You found one? Yes, I found one. I found an entire book-length text, because that's the other thing. I had only ever found article-length texts, short texts. In Australia, the biggest proponent of it, I believe, is Hazel Smith, who, from that writing experiment book, from the writing experiment book, really, really good book. I'll put details down below if you're interested. But she has ficto-criticism in a chapter in that book. But she and a couple of others were pretty much the only ones that I was seeing who were really creating ficto-critical texts. Most of the other things were like they were the big ones, so, and they were not novels. I did find one, and it is called Horse, and it is by Anya Wolowitz. She is from Western Australia. She is I believe, a poet. And this is a ficto-critical text. Now, I haven't read the whole thing, and Laura will do that. But looking through it, I was able to look into it enough to see that's not what I'm looking for. So what probably the biggest thing in terms of ficto-critical things is the insertion of self. But you don't put yourself in anything, not overtly, not consciously. No, I don't. I don't even do it here. Yeah. So I don't consciously and deliberately insert myself into creative works. I'm not that kind of writer. I am not an autoethnographic writer. And because I'm not an autoethnographic writer, the intensely personal quality of ficto-criticism is not going to work. So it is a very, very interesting form of writing, and it is something that ever since I first heard of it, yes, like nearly 10 years ago. Yeah, like nearly 10 years ago. Is it that long since we did the Masters? Yeah. Wow. Time flies, doesn't it? Ever since I have actually found it quite fascinating since I heard of it, and thought I would be very interested in creating it. But looking at it, and the more I look at it, the more it is pretty obvious it's not going to work for the story that I have in mind. And I'm not mangling the story that I have in mind for the sake of making a particular style work. And that's a really important thing to remember when you're writing, is you have to let a narrative dictate the form, not dictate the form to the narrative. Because initially, part of the reason why when I started this, when I got the idea, it sat for so long, is because my initial concept was a straight, linear, third-person narrative, which is what I was used to doing. I thought, oh, it's going to be another novel like other novels that I have written. And although I knew I could do that, it wasn't terribly exciting. You're bored at the idea. Yes, I was bored at the idea, because although I've published one full narrative novel, I have actually written 6. I have actually written about 6 over the course of my writing life since you started. When you were 20. Yeah, since I started when I was 20, I had actually written about 6 full-length novels, one of which was publishable. And then I abandoned another one recently, well, in the past couple of years, because I literally got bored of it. I could not feel that there was any point in continuing with the book. I didn't really want the story. It was too dark, it was too heavy, but I also I was like, I can do this. I can do this. Where's the challenge? Why should I do something I already know how to do? Which, I think that's one of the things that is very, for me, very telling. I see no point in just doing the same thing over and over and over again. I know how to do it, so why should I do that again? Especially when it's something that's going to be a big investment of time, like writing a novel. They take a lot of time, they take a lot of effort. And if I already know how to do it, then the question becomes, well, if you're just doing something you already know how to do, how are you progressing? And I think that is, it says something, it certainly says something about me, but looking around, content sludge, yes, content sludge, at a lot of things that are being produced at the moment, they are really, they're not doing much for me. I'm looking at things, and the last time I was really excited by a movie was the last Martin Scorsese film, The Killers of the Flower Moon, which I have seen once. That was the last new movie I was really excited about. And why was I really excited about it? Because I knew Martin Scorsese can make a good film. Haven't seen a lot of other things. So many things are just filling up space. And I'm talking about books, and I'm talking about music, and I'm talking about films as well. The Joker. Oh yes. We have been we have been spending a bit too much time on YouTube. Watching people rant about the new Joker movie. Had zero interest in watching it. The first one looks like the king of comedy crossed with Taxi Driver. I'll watch Martin Scorsese. Thank you very much. Yeah. But the new one, because they went and did something daringly different, people are complaining because they wanted, as far as I can see, they wanted content sludge. They wanted something exactly like what they expected or had. I think that's a really bad thing. Full stop. It's a really bad thing for the world if all we are doing is creating banal bilge because we know it will sell. I need to do something that isn't something I can do on just about autopilot. And if I stayed writing the same sorts of things over and over and over again, I would be working on autopilot, and that would absolutely kill any creativity that that project would create for me. Is that why you haven't done another book like the Shakespeare one? Yeah, that's why I haven't done another book like the Shakespeare one, because I couldn't do two of them back to back. They're easy to write. They're very, very easy for me to write, but I don't want to do two back to back. No, I don't want to do two back to back. I've got the next one planned. I've got books bought for it. It's all, but I don't want to do them back to back. God, no. That'd be boring. So what is not content sludge? What's not content sludge? And you watch that Big Napoleon. Yeah, I watched that Big Napoleon. That's the opposite of content sludge. And that's actually a really good example. The French silent film of Napoleon from 1927 is a perfect example of the kind of thing that I want to see more of. Not necessarily 5.5 hour French silent films, though I got to the end of 5.5 hours of French silent film and could have gone, yeah, I want more of this. I want to see the other 6 films that he had planned. It is huge, flawed, magnificent, daring, risk-taking. He spent 6 films worth of money on it. This was his putting a train in a river. Yeah. Spent all that money to get one shot. Taking those sorts of risks is really exciting. And I think part of the thing is that what has happened to everything is the level of corporatization around it, because everything has to make money. No, yeah, I know. Everything has to make money, and has to make lots of money. So therefore we can't innovate anything. We have to keep creating what we did before. Because how do you know an audience wants something new? Yeah, to have any level of artistic integrity, you have to keep taking risks. Yes. Taking a risk means not having a guarantee that there is an audience underneath you. It means flying on the trapeze without a net. You could crash. You definitely could crash. But if there's no chance of crashing, there's no adrenaline, so there's no thrill. But you own the company. Yeah, I own the company, so I do have that level of security. I can write and know, yeah, I don't have to put this out there into the general market. I can put it out there as a finished book. I don't have to worry if this is what people are looking for. Which it does give me a level of security, but that is the same level of security that someone like Virginia Woolf had to take risks and challenge what was there. Just because you are, taking a risk and knowing, well, the risk is actually, do I find readership or not, rather than do I get published? Yes. Yeah, it is a different risk. I'm also not staking I need to pay rent off this. I go teach. That's what I do. I teach. It's easier. It's easier. It's easier. And that's the other thing. If you disconnect it from money, then instantly you don't have to have that expectation on the work either. And all of those things create a much, much better work. A work that is not tied to this needs to make X amount of dollars. So what am I doing? Well, I definitely am working on the idea of parody, possibly verging into satire. Satire is harder, just purely because satire is harder to write and have it land. Parody is not so hard to write, but at the same time, we're talking relative things. It's deciding, okay, I want to play with genre mixing, which, you know, it can work. You can make it work. But not the Chinese box style, not the found document style, but actual genre blending and code switching, which is a different thing. So instead of taking the purely fictional approach, I am taking an idea that comes from the metafictional of that blending of genres, but I'm not, or that ficto-critical idea of blending of genres, but I'm not using, strictly speaking, ficto-criticism, because I find that has elements that won't serve my purposes. So it's a bit different, but it's also a case that it's not really worth doing something if you're not challenging yourself. And I can't be the only person who is getting frustrated at this point about content sludge. I can't be the only person who is absolutely sick to death of watching the same story and the same thing come up, because I swear some of the genres are starting to eat themselves. They're cannibalizing themselves. The same stories coming up and up and up and up and up and up and up. And because people are not... They're creating content sludge without even realizing they're creating content sludge, because people silo themselves off. And that is not a good thing as a writer, to silo yourself off and decide, this is how I write. I only read things within this genre. It's not going to help you develop as a writer, because even if you're a genre writer, you need things outside of that to bring in. Otherwise, it starts to become self-replicating and flaws get into it. It starts becoming very cloney. It starts becoming very samey. I think that, for instance, one thing that I am absolutely sick of is goodies and baddies with zero nuance. I find the idea of having just killable things is just tedious at this point. As a reader where I am, I'm like, I don't care at this point. Like, who cares? Who cares? It's like, ooh, it's the ultimate bad, and it's the ultimate. It's like, ugh. It's like, okay, Milton. Yeah, we get it. We get it. God and the devil. It's just a bit dull. And I think that is sort of an issue that I come up against when I'm thinking about, how do I want to create something? Well, I think of the things that are dull, that are going to bore me, that are not going to sustain the long amount of time that it takes me to write a novel, because I am a really slow writer. Really slow. I think I'm slow. I mean, I see people who can put stuff out really, really fast, and it's like, well, I don't write that fast. Ever. No. Ever. We never write that fast, do we? No. So I need something that I know what I can sustain over a very long period. I also know that I need something that will challenge me. So I'm writing comedy. The actual variation of the comedy is yet to be fully established. I am code switching, so playing with genre. And I'm also going to be playing with lots of different styles. That should be interesting. That should be really interesting, to play with a lot of different styles. But what I can say is that I do have the bare bones of this story now. It's really I've done a lot of structural things, and the more structural things that I have done, the more that the story starts to come to life. I still haven't got to the corkboard. I still haven't got to any sort of diary. I've got a notes app on my phone. So just so that I don't have to keep it all in my head at the moment, because that's not going to work at the moment. But that's the update that we have. We discovered that ficto-criticism is not going to work exactly as we had hoped, but we have come up with a compromise, or rather than a compromise, a better option, by eliminating something and not fixating on it has to be this. No, it doesn't have to be this. It has to fit the narrative that I want to tell. Clearly, my narrative did not want to be straight narrative fiction. It did not want to be ficto-criticism. It wants to be this weird hybridy thing that I have finally settled on. And having settled on it, the whole thing starts to behave in a way that is a lot more settled. And once it's more settled, then you start, right, I can start to think of this because I have a structure. A lot of writing that I see, yes, that we see, that comes through, and that is the structure. Something structural doesn't work. If something structural doesn't work, it doesn't matter how good the other components are, because the roots of your story are not strong enough to hold everything. So for me, on top of getting characters to start with, getting that structure right is really, really important. You don't build a house on poor foundations. So the foundational stuff is really important, and looking outside of your own particular genre, looking outside of different things that you might think, gaining inspiration from different sources. I frequently use film or other mediums, non-writing mediums, for inspiration. So being able to do that is also important. Not siloing oneself is another really important thing for getting those early structural bits down. So anyway, that's about all we've got this week. It'll probably be a while before we do another video. We just happen to have a lot of stuff happening right now. So we'll be back at some point with some more updates on our book. Yes, we will update you. We will update you. And until then, the Volga-Finger, ich bin ja Jesus, wie sa. Bye-bye! If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.